All right, I'm bringing you in, Dan. Sir, how's everything going?
Well, it's been a hard day, Viva. I didn't sleep well last night because there's so much adrenaline going through me. And I went to work today and here I am.
Okay, I said we're gonna start this from the beginning because we did. Everybody can go watch our first interview. There were audio clicking noises in the first one, but I'm not going to presume that everybody watched the first one who's watching now. So it might be a recap for those who already know what's going on, and it's going to be shocking, heartbreaking, and distressing for those who don't know what's going on. Dan, tell me who you are.
My name's Dan Hartman. I've been a truck driver for 18 years. I have a beautiful fiance that is keeping me going right now. My son Sean played hockey his whole life. It was his love and passion. To continue to play hockey, he had to be vaccinated. No shot, no hockey. He chose to do this, and right after his vaccination, 4 days later, he went to emergency with brown circles around his eyes and bad vomiting, a severe rash. Doctor sent him home with only Advil, didn't do a D-dimer test, did not do a troponin test. I filed a complaint against the doctor, and he was found not guilty. 33 days after Sean's first Pfizer vaccine, my son was found dead on the floor beside his bed.
Dan, let me stop you just for a bit. Sean was your only child.
Yes.
And now some people may know this and others may not, but you were divorced from your original wife, mother of Sean, and
Yeah.
so this is not to entertain, address, or even respond to some of the terrible things people say in the internet. On both sides, it's not just like people sit there criticizing so-called anti-vaxxers. There are some people who are remorseless is not the word; it's an understatement. But who say you shouldn't have gotten your kid vaccinated, you shouldn't have allowed it. From what I understand, from what I recall, you're divorced at the time or going through a divorce. You didn't know that that Sean had gotten vaccinated.
I had no idea. The coroner who came to the house the day he died was the one who told me. I
And,
begged Sean not to get it. In fact, I begged him over and over. I told him kids his age were dying. And I thought I got through to him, but I guess I didn't.
um, and so he how old was he when he got the shot when he passed away?
He was 17.
So and well, I'll ask this question later. It's a very difficult question to ask, and it's got to be even more difficult to answer. But I'll get to it in a sec. You didn't know that he was hospitalized after 4 days. You didn't know with the shot, but you also didn't know that he was hospitalized.
Had no idea.
And he passes away 33 days later. And remind everybody or tell everybody when do you discover that he had gotten vaccinated?
The day he died.
And I'll say he had gotten the jab. So the day he died, and how did it come up?
I asked the coroner who was on scene at the house, I said, was my son vaccinated? And he said, yes, he was. At first, he thought it was Moderna, but then he confirmed with me later it was Pfizer.
And what happened? I mean, what goes through your mind when that happens? I don't want to. You're divorced already. You're divorced from his mother, your first wife.
Yeah.
Is there a tremendous? How is she doing in this? Does she? Is there an insurmountable amount of guilt that she's living with, or do you not have this discussion?
We don't speak. I'm quite sure she's hurting very bad. She loves Sean just as much as me.
And so when you
And
find,
I truly hope she doesn't feel any guilt because it wasn't her fault. It wasn't anyone's fault who took this jab. Millions of people took it. Everyone was told it was safe and effective. And that's our only way out of this. So I pray she doesn't feel guilty.
you find out the day that he passes away that he got the shot, When did you find out that he had been hospitalized even shorter after the shot?
I didn't find out he was hospitalized until I got the first preliminary autopsy report that told me he went to the emergency 4 days after his shot. I had no idea he went. Sean didn't tell me. I'm sure it's because he didn't want to admit to me that he got the shot, and he would think I would be upset with him. I don't know. That's my guess.
And so you find out about that ER visit, which was 4 days after the first shot. Brown bag or what do you call it? Brown circles under his eyes.
Yes, I think they call it raccoon eyes. Dr. Drew had the exact same thing.
Is
Brown
there
circles.
any idea as to do you have any better understanding now as to what that might have been? And for everybody out there, I'm not reflexively, unquestionably blaming this. It could have been an absolute freak anomaly of nature. I know what I think, but so take that for what it's worth. Do you have any better understanding of what causes that, or what that might have been an indication of after having gone through what you've gone through?
I'm pretty sure it's heart trouble that is causing that.
Okay, and you find that out after he's passed away, and then you say, well, what tests did you or did you not do? He goes in vomiting, raccoon eyes as they call it, and I know you've mentioned the last time we did this, but what did the doctors do to him, give to him? What did they say to him, and what was the diagnosis?
Well, he had an extremely sore shoulder opposite of the injection shoulder. So like his shoulder was in a lot of pain, and they gave him the medical equivalent of Advil for inflammation in his shoulder. But I've had other doctors tell me that if he had a heart problem, the pain could definitely travel from the injection shoulder to the other side. And the doctor there, I don't know why, to this day, it bothers me why he didn't do any blood work. Why?
The shoulder that he had the severe pain in, was it the left or the right shoulder?
The left.
Okay, I'm not a doctor. One might reasonably think it would have to, if it's a heart issue, then that might be an indication of something. When he's admitted to the hospital 4 days afterwards, and this is not to relitigate the complaint that you filed, but it's going to get into it. The ER doctor knew it was in the file that he had gotten the shot 4 days prior.
Yes, it's even in the autopsy report. There's a section where the emergency doctor got to fill in what he thought, and he put query vaccine reaction. That's what he wrote.
And despite that, we now know a lot more than I think some of the professionals probably knew it then, but certainly some of the experts knew it then. Despite questioning whether or not it was related to the jab, they did know troponin tests, and that's to test for a dissolved blood clot in the blood.
Yeah, it's true.
Or D-dimer. I forget. There's D-dimer and troponin. Yeah. I get mixed up. They did not do that.
No, I don't know why.
And you had filed a complaint against the doctor. We don't need to mention the doctor's name, but you had filed a complaint?
Yes, with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, CPSO. And then I waited till they had their hearing, which I wasn't invited to, and they found him not guilty.
Was there a motivated decision to that? Or a written decision, I should say?
Yeah, I got an email saying they found him not guilty. There was no negligence. I don't know how they came up with that.
Was that decision susceptible of any appeal, or did you try to appeal that decision?
I didn't appeal it in time. I had nothing to go on. I gave them everything I had the first time, so I had no new evidence to supply them. I knew they were going to find him not guilty. I knew it.
So they found the doctor not guilty of negligence or malpractice, despite not doing what I think most doctors or most experts, or at least the experts who people, have been vocal about this since the beginning, say. Do you recall which is which, D-dimer versus troponin?
No, sorry, I don't. I just know they're to check for blood clots and heart damage.
I'm just going to do this here. The D-dimer test looks for a D-dimer in the blood. D-dimer is a protein fragment, small pieces that made when blood clot dissolves in your body. So that's for the blood clot. What is troponin? I'm just going to Troponin measures the level of troponin in your blood. Troponin is a type of protein found in the muscles near your heart. So I guess then troponin is for myocarditis. D-dimer is for dissolved clots. Did neither of those tests, despite asking whether or not, or flagging it as a relevant consideration that he got this shot 4 days earlier. He goes home, and you never know about any of this until
I texted him the night before he died at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock on September 26th. I texted him a funny meme about a Blue Jay pitcher, Toronto Blue Jays, and he typed back, "That's hilarious." He didn't tell me he was in any pain or anything was uncomfortable, and in the morning he was gone. He was on the floor.
What happens after that? What's the process of trying to uncover answers, trying to get some answers, and trying to deal with this? Like what happens from that point on?
Well, the cause of death on the autopsy is unascertained. They cannot tell me how he died. They just want me to go on with my life with that answer. Sorry, we don't know how he died. That's what got me fighting. I started my Twitter page in October of 2021, 1 month after he died. I've been doing it ever since, day and night. I haven't even had a chance to really grieve, John. I only had 3 weeks off work, and I had to go back. It's been horrible. It's a nightmare.
I don't know how it's insurmountable. I don't know. It's insurmountable.
It is.
And what I know that they did to you after this is, I don't know that anything can be more injurious than the injury. It's certainly insult to it. What happens afterwards? You try to get some answers. The hospital says cause of death non-ascertained. And do you ask for an autopsy? Do they do an autopsy?
Yeah, they did a full autopsy with toxicology and genetic and everything. They didn't find anything. So I couldn't live with unascertained. So that's what I've been doing, fighting for the answers for Sean. And I applied to the Vaccine Injury Support Program of Canada. They denied me. They said there's no proof the vaccine was a link to Sean's death. I said to the woman on the phone, there's no proof it wasn't. His cause of death is unascertained. How do you deny me like this? So now, thanks to Dr. Cole giving me the report that I needed to appeal, I've appealed. Now we'll see what they say.
It's the most dishonest, disingenuous, abusive thing to possibly say. There's no definitive connection other than temporal proximity and I guess, I don't know, temporal proximity in an otherwise healthy 17-year-old boy. And it's like, I know, when you're a lot of the messages you have is, your son was healthy, didn't eat badly, was active, and et cetera, et cetera. And as if to say, well, if he had eaten, junk food or whatever, then that would be a more plausible explanation than what happened to him 4 days before being hospitalized, 33 days before. A question I didn't ask you the first time: do you know if he had gotten a second shot?
No, he didn't. He only had one.
I know I've asked this as well, but the media, Canadian mainstream media, has CBC, CTV News, Global News, any of the government subsidized outlets asked you about your story?
No, not at all. The only one from media that is really has spoken to me right from the beginning is Joe Warmington from the Toronto Sun. He's become a friend. And he didn't get in touch with me to do a story. He was just a good Canadian reaching out to another Canadian. And he calls me all the time. We talk all the time. And I'm sure he would love to do a story about it, but every journalist is silenced. Nobody from mainstream media has reached out to me at all. They've been tagged in my post. Why don't you talk to Dan? And they won't. They don't even, nothing. I haven't heard a word from Pfizer. I reported Sean's death to Pfizer a year ago. They said, we take this very seriously. We'll get back to you in a couple days. Haven't heard a word. Nobody from the government has reached out to me at all to even offer condolences or anything. It's just insane.
So you say it got your application to the Vaccine Injury Support Program got rejected.
Yeah.
What evidence? Like, what do you have to submit? What do you have to submit for that process? For those who don't know how it works.
I had to submit the autopsy and all medical records, records from his family doctor, and I did that. And somehow they came up with, no, it wasn't the vaccine, even though the cause of death is unascertained. Even the pathologist couldn't tell us how he died. So what gives them the right to say it wasn't from the vaccine when even the pathologist doesn't know for sure?
What was the outcome? Was there an ability to appeal the finding?
Yes,
You've resubmitted in light of the new. So tell us how this works now. So they do the autopsy on Sean, and you had him cremated, or was he buried?
he's buried.
So and the tissue samples that you have from the autopsy is basically all the tissue sample that you are going to be able to use for subsequent testing, subsequent expert review.
Yes.
Who did you end up getting to reanalyze or to analyze the tissue to come to their own determination?
Dr. Cole from America. Sadly, nobody in Canada was doing tissue staining tests to look for spike protein in the body where it shouldn't be. Dr. Cole agreed to help me, and he requested the samples and got them and did his tests, and he found quite a large amount of spike protein in his adrenal glands.
Bearing in mind you're not a doctor, et cetera, all of this stuff. So that tell us what you understand that means, and I'm gonna pull up your post, and we're gonna watch a video from Dr. Cole. But tell us what that means to the layperson.
Well, the adrenal glands control your blood pressure. They control several different things in your body, but the blood pressure is, if Sean's blood pressure dropped, crashed, that could easily have killed him. Dr. Cole even told me that he could have died from that. But the amount of spike protein that was found in his adrenal glands, when they told everybody it doesn't leave your shoulder, don't worry, the shot stays in your shoulder. No, it doesn't. It travels through your whole body. It's a killing machine.
We've talked about this multiple. I mean, I've talked about it on the channel with multiple of the doctors who have come and the experts, where the issue was, the question of aspirating the needle. So not that you inject it into your veins, but if it gets into a blood vessel, and then it can travel through the blood. And the explanation given by the CDC as to why they were not recommending aspirating the needle, which is to pull back on the plunger to make sure that you're not drawing blood, so that you know you're injecting into tissue and not into blood vessels. The explanation for the CDC as to why they were not giving guidance to aspirate before injecting was that the longer it takes to inject this, the more uncomfortable it's going to make for people, and it's going to increase vaccine hesitancy, as if that makes any possible sense.
Wow.
I don't know. It's. I mean, as if that versus adverse events because it's actually being injected into blood vessels or whatever, as opposed to muscle. I'm gonna bring up a video from Dr. Cole on Dr. Jewel. I guess we'll play the whole thing, and I'll stop it as we go along to see if there's anything we want to stop on.
So going to Kelly's question, so now we'll jump forward. Let's jump forward 2 slides to number 6, Caleb. So I'll go back 1, and then this one's kind of a teaser because this one's important. So spike protein here on the left, this is heart tissue. All that brown that you see is spike protein by a special technique we use in the laboratory. Again, this one's Dr. Burkhart's slide. The brown is spike protein expression, and the antibodies we use in the laboratory are like a lock and a key. If it binds and locks on, then we use a little glow on the end of that antibody so we can see it under the microscope. So on the left, we have spike protein as an internal control. If it were a viral infection, then the nucleocapsid should light up as well. So it's simple deductive reasoning. If spike is there, nucleocapsid isn't, it's not from an infection, it's because the body's producing spike protein.
I'm actually going to share this so that everybody understands that, because it's one of the questions I had and I was going to ask you, Dan, like, did Sean get COVID? And they say, the body produces spike protein, went from a COVID infection. It also produces it in response to the jab. And this is an explanation as to the distinction between the two, where they can actually differentiate between the two, apparently, if you trust the expert, Dr. Ryan Cole.
Yeah.
jump to the next one. This is highly concerning. This is one I just completed yesterday on an individual, and this one we'll do more of a prominent press conference on once the rest of the autopsy is complete. This is the adrenal gland. Your adrenal glands are so critical for so many functions in your body, from your adrenaline to your glucocorticoids to your hormone balance, even to your happy hormones, your metencaphalins, etc. This individual, you can see all those brown dots in there. And again, the nucleocapsid was negative, and this was a post-vaccine death. And all those brown dots, that spike protein, not only filling the middle of the adrenal gland, but it was also in the medulla and the cortex as well. So it was filling the entire adrenal gland. What does this mean? Well, a lot of patients have POTS syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, after COVID, as well as after the injections.
POT, I forget who I interviewed now who had POT, who suffered from POT, but it's one of the, call it more frequent of the infrequent adverse reactions, but it's one of them, a definitive one.
Well, this shows that it's absolutely depositing in the adrenal glands. And so this is kind of a newer finding that I wanted to bring out here, because so many patients are going through that post-COVID or that post-injection challenge of blood pressure regulation, of fatigue, et cetera. And so this one, I mean, it hit me over the head when I saw this one yesterday. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the amount of spike protein within the adrenal gland, and not just in one area of the adrenal, but distributed throughout. And if if we take a step back, it explains some of the clinical manifestation that we need to be trying to address. Number one, can we neutralize the spike in these patients that are persisting with spike expression? Number two, can we stop doing this to people? It's causing harms that we didn't study beforehand. And again, good medicine, it doesn't matter if it's effective if it's not safe. And we're finding so many findings through the tissues. And as Kelly said, the cells are objective. That's what I like about pathology. It's, here's the observation. Here, the cells don't lie. It's either present or not present. It's binding or not binding. And these cells are expressing it. And so we know from a pathophysiologic mechanism, the cells are expressing spike protein.
Dan, this is your Dr. Cole, correct?
Yes, it is.
And that lipid nanoparticle, the adrenal gland, is really fatty. And so when we were discussing before, Drew, the lipid nanoparticle honing to wherever it's going to hone to, it likes to hone to fatty tissues. And the adrenal gland has ACE2 receptors, but it's also a fatty type tissue. So here we can see a manifestation of it fusing, putting its gene product in, and now these cells that shouldn't be making a foreign protein, And think of like Addison's crisis. That's when somebody's blood pressure will drop because you don't have the appropriate hormones to keep tone in your blood vessels, can cause low blood sugar very quickly as well, can cause a dump in your potassium, and your potassium goes low as well. And now, even if there's no inflammation in the heart, if your adrenal gland isn't functioning properly, that could lead to an arrhythmia because of potassium insufficiency as well. So this is one new mechanism that just literally came to me yesterday as I was looking through slides, and I have in the background here about a cajillion more to look at, and those will.
What part of the adrenal gland are they? Is it showing in all parts of the adrenal? So you're getting mineralocorticoid as well as glucocorticoid? Yeah.
Yeah, the medulla and the cortex.
Let me just remove this out of here. A couple of things he mentioned. Dan, was there any indication of inflammation of the heart, myocarditis, or inflammation of the sac, pericarditis, that you know of in Sean's autopsy?
They said there was no myocarditis found, and just a very slightly enlarged heart, which they said wasn't even really worth talking about because it's apparently normal for an athlete.
All right, and now, okay, so now the Dr. Cole, that's your Dr. Cole. How did you get in touch with him, and what was he mandated to do? If you could describe that.
Through Twitter, thank God. I never even would have known who that man was, but people started recommending him, and then I made so many connections through my Twitter account. I can't even remember who first got me in touch with him, but someone did, and he offered to help me for free. He didn't charge a cent. I've already been accused on Twitter of people saying to me, how much did he rape you for? Or how much did he charge you? Not a cent. He didn't ask for a penny.
Well, first, I mean, it would have been not an unreasonable thing for him to even charge for his services to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not, which is why some of these fundraisers are necessary above and beyond certain losses to actually pay for expenses.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to bring up a tweet, and then you're going to tell me if I'm connecting dots that don't exist. This is your tweet. This is the tweet from yesterday where you have a video, which we could watch, but you're here, so we don't need to watch the video. The conclusion of the report: having reviewed numerous spike proteins and related deaths personally and with colleagues in Europe, it is my opinion that the findings so far are sufficient to indicate the mRNA vaccine was significantly contributory or outright causative in this unexpected sudden death of an otherwise previously healthy adolescent male, given no other obvious genetic, toxicologic, or pre-existing disease findings. With sincere regards, Ryan and Cole. And I can't tell one thing from another. That looks like the slide that he was talking about with Dr. Drew.
Yeah, the brown that you see is spike in the body where it shouldn't be.
And then we got another finding here. It says in both of these, from the adrenal gland, the brown areas indicate the lab antibodies binding to spike protein in the cells. I have repeated this twice, and it appeared positive both times. And then we can zoom in.
Yeah.
Do you know that, or was Dr. Cole talking about Sean's? I mean, that was a recent piece, a hit from him on Dr. Drew. Do you know if that was Sean's sample?
I'm not sure. I think that video was from February actually, and the picture looks very similar to what I've seen of Sean. And if it isn't Sean, then it's someone who had the exact same problem as Sean. That's for sure.
Okay, it's from February 2nd, 2023. So I'm gonna correct myself.
So that's someone else who was suffering the same thing Sean suffered.
When did you mandate, or when did Dr. Cole take the case?
It was about a year ago. He's got so much to do. He's trying for everybody.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what goes into these tests, what they cost, how long they take. So it was well before February 2023 that Dr. Cole took on your file.
Yeah.
So you just get the report yesterday?
It was a couple weeks ago, but I've been waiting for the right time to share it.
And now what do you do with this now? You've appealed the vaccine injury support program finding of no causation.
Yeah, I needed that report, or else I couldn't have even applied for the appeal. And Dr. Cole came through on the last night when I had to have my new evidence. So now I'm in the waiting game. I've emailed them saying what's going on with my appeal. I'm not hearing anything, so I guess it will be soon. I don't know. I sure hope they don't say no again.
I mean, it's the yes. I imagine the yes would. It's not that it doesn't offer massive amounts of money. The yes would be the recognition of what they've done. It would be a recognition of what they've done.
Yep. I think the maximum payout is $115,000 or something. Like, you can't even buy a house for that. That's just a good party weekend. It's not about the money. It's about them acknowledging my boy and saying, yes, unfortunately, he died from the vaccine. You can't go on pretending no one dies from it. And that's what they're doing.
No,
I just want my boy to be acknowledged. His life mattered. His life mattered more than anything to me. I just want them to acknowledge him.
The worst thing is that they say, you know, it was safe and effective forever, and then Justin Trudeau came out with a video I'm sure you've seen recently where he says, I'm sure some people have been injured, but you know, I'm sure, but it's what we had to do. And then you see the same videos of other videos from Anthony Housefather coming out and explaining why it was that these pharmaceutical companies wouldn't sell this product without total immunity from liability, because they rushed testing, they rushed manufacturing, they didn't have traditional safety data, which is typically, you know, years and years of safety data. When did Sean pass away?
September 27th, 2021.
September 2021. And what have you been? How have you been coping in the last? How have you been coping since this happens?
I can't really. It's the Twitter page helps a lot because there's so many good people that help to keep me going. I've met some really good friends, but it's basically suffering, Viva, from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to bed. I only took 3 weeks off work. I needed at least 3 months. I want to take a year off work. I want to go on a leave of absence and go away to a cabin up north or something and go off the internet. And this is all I've been doing since Sean died. It's trying to hold down my job as a truck driver and fighting for Sean all day and all night.
Have you run into other people who have had similar incidents? I know you've been in touch with, I guess, Maddie DeGarry's parents,
Yep.
The Martins.
Yep.
How many stories like this have you heard? Have people come to you and shared their stories of loss and injury?
I've heard thousands of injury, but five parents that have lost their children right after the vaccine, like me. 5 different parents from all over the world, and people chalk it up to coincidence. It's not. Healthy kids don't die. I talked to one from Australia, one from South Africa, one in America, 2 in America. Like, it's nuts. These parents are all destroyed like me, and nobody will even acknowledge them.
It's going to be the most preposterous question. No one from Trudeau's government has reached out to you.
No,
No one from Jagmeet Singh's party has reached out to you.
no,
Has anyone from the Conservative Party reached out to you?
no.
Have you
Not a
reached?
word.
Have you reached out to any of them?
Oh yes, I've tried. I tried to get Doug Ford to call me. I've messaged Jag, and nothing. They're acting like I don't exist. Even condolences would be appreciated.
Who was that guy that I was trying to find the video before, the one who said, "Oh, we've heard of one story of a 17-year-old who passed away. We send our deepest condolences." Do you remember that video? This guy had it was either a school, it was a profession. I posted it a while back. It's this guy talking about Sean. We've heard one story where our deepest sympathies. But let's move on. What does it take? I mean, what does it take to reach out to them? What does it take to get them to respond? Doug Ford. This was the provincial. Was it a mandate at the time when Sean did this, or it was internal policy that was influenced by government pressure?
No, it was mandated. He couldn't play hockey without it. And as far as I know, that's provincial. I'm not certain, but that's what I've been told.
No, they're the federal mandates, or at least some people say don't blame Trudeau, blame Doug Ford, and I'm not going to swear. I blame everybody. First of all, it doesn't. If Trudeau and people don't understand this wanted to intervene with unconstitutional provincial legislation, the federal government could do that. But when it's Trudeau saying, "I'm going to give you billions of dollars to put in this vaccine program, the vaccine passport," it's don't give me this crap that it's provincial. It's provincial because it's trickled down from Trudeau, and it's trickled down from this years long of psychological, spiritual abuse, and telling you this is your only way out. Roll up your sleeves and take it.
Yeah.
So you've reached out to Doug Ford. Nothing. He's still in power. He got reelected, right, with a bigger majority.
Yeah. I don't know why they won't talk to me. Like, I'm not a psycho. Let's sit down and talk. Let's talk about what happened. Pretending nothing happened it just makes everyone think there's a cover up. I mean, I don't know why they do that.
I'm not trying to. There's no one who needs to make you angry or more distraught. It's worse than a cover up because it was a cover up at the beginning, and now it's just accepted as par for the course. It's safe and effective, and if you talk about it, you get demonized, you get called an anti-vaxxer and everything. And then once that whole period's over, then it becomes, well, yeah, we always knew there were going to be some side effects and some casualties of war, and yours just happens to be your son. All right. Now, what do you do now to cope with this? Do you see a therapist? Do you have what's the word I'm looking for? A grief counselor.
Grief counselor, yeah. I go to group therapy with other parents who have lost their children, and we all go around the circle and tell our stories, and everyone just has their jaw open. They don't know what to say to me when I tell mine. It's all the other parents had normal deaths, not something like Sean. And I do one-on-one grief counseling with someone on Zoom and with eye techniques and things she's teaching me. It's just not enough though. I mean, there's nothing anyone can do. I don't think this is just a battle I'm gonna have to go through till I die. It's gonna haunt me forever.
Now we've got Chet Chisholm in the Rumble section says, Dan, I'm so incredibly sorry. The way Sean was treated, and more accurately, not treated, disgusts me to my very core. They failed him in every way possible. In time, we will hold them all accountable in a political, nonviolent way. And I'm saying that because this type of abuse, and we've discussed off air, and I think we talked about it. This is the type of abuse. It almost seems intentionally designed to make good people break and do bad things. You got a dog? I've seen from Twitter.
Yeah, I do.
How is it? It's a male.
Yeah.
How? That is okay. Oh,
there he is.
That's a beautiful. Is he a pity mix, or is that a boxer Roddy?
He's a pit mastiff. big sucky boy.
Well, that's a beautiful dog.
Oh, he's the best. Don't start licking my head.
And so what do you do now? I mean, what's the plan of action going forward now?
Hoping for justice. I'm hoping some lawyer will step in and fight for me. I've only got till September 27th to file a claim. Time's ticking. I've had 2 lawyers and I don't know what happened. They chickened out. There's got to be someone who can help me. I mean, there's fraud committed here. There was no informed consent. Like, there's got to be something. The doctor didn't do his job. Like, come on.
The complaint that you filed against the doctor was an internal complaint. It wasn't a lawsuit for malpractice, correct?
No, it was just an internal complaint.
And so in theory, not like none of the lawsuits, nothing's going to undo what has been irreversibly done. It's just it's only a question of recognition and proper recognition of what they've done or what has happened.
Exactly. I just want justice. I want someone to be punished for what they did to him. I'm without my boy now for the rest of my life. And it hurts so goddamn bad every day. He was so special. He was such a good kid.
Are you going to is Dr. Cole going to talk? Is he going to be authorized to speak more about the results? Is he going to do press conferences and try to drive awareness for this?
Yes, he's getting a second opinion on Sean Dunn. I'm not going to say by who or where, but once the 2 experts come together, that's stronger than one. There's already people saying to me, "You can't believe Cole." Like, it's disgusting. I even said in my video, even if Cole had 3 people saying the same thing, some of you people wouldn't believe him. You just say it's not true. I believe him, and that's all that counts. It's my boy. I believe him.
In our locals community, S Laird 456 says, Dan, we love you. Sean Mattered from Susie Q from Twitter. I presume you know who Susie Q is?
I do. Even Chet, who just commented, he's a paramedic. The guy you said before.
I know. Chet was on the channel. He talked about his experience with this as well, and his immediate experience, but his anecdotal experience from being involved in that world. And I don't know what justice looks like after this. I mean, I don't know what the word is. The dark side of me, I know what those dark thoughts want.
Me too.
But I don't know what justice, that won't be justice. That's just going to debase the good. And that, I think, is also part and parcel of what's at issue here is demoralizing people from the most important things and important principles of life. But I don't know what justice looks like. Have you spoken? I mean, I say, but there's no politicians, no media, doctors in Canada. Any doctor in Canada want to touch this?
Dr. Shoemaker, you should consider having him on your show too. He lost his license. Doctor for 40 years, never had one complaint against him. Once he spoke up about this, and he spoke about Sean quite a bit, they took his license. The CPSO, the same people I filed a complaint against the doctor from emergency, Dr. Chris Shoemaker. He's on Twitter, and he lost his license. He's been helping people for 40 years, and they took it from him, but he's still speaking. He knows a lot about this stuff.
As far as helping you goes, and I know, first of all, the trolls are out there, and they're out there specifically. I believe, like, I think they are government accounts. Call me crazy and call me suspicious. I know that whenever I put out a tweet that's critical of Trudeau, I get a lot more what are now muted messages, which I'm not even opening anymore. But there are trolls out there, and their sole objective is to distract you, to torment you, and to break you. So setting aside, I know what they say, and it requires restraint not to read it, and even greater restraint not to respond to it. What can anybody do to help you right now?
Defend me when the trolls attack, because I hate doing it. Get on there and fight for me. Take care of them. Like, people tell me, just ignore it, Dan, but it's too late to ignore it. I've already seen it on a screen. It's in my head. How am I going to ignore what they just said to me? I've had people accuse me of not being Sean's dad. I've had people accuse me of being a grifter, like I'm out for anything except justice for my boy and truth. It's so disgusting, the things people say to me.
And now you have, and the second, anybody who has not lost, nobody who's not been through what you've been through can even begin to remotely understand it. And I've only lived it second-handedly through a family tragedy, but more of an extended family, and we see the devastation. And the idea that, to accuse you of grifting or trying to profit from this, you've been working full time since this happened with 3 weeks off to grieve.
Yeah. The government only gives you 1 day, and I had to go into my sick benefits just to take 3 weeks off. And you only get 15 weeks sick benefits, so I could take a bit more time off, but if I use up all my sick benefits, what happens if I get sick? I'm screwed. I'd love to go away for a year somewhere and try to actually process this and deal with it, like up north somewhere with my fiance. And she deserves so much just for what she's doing to be by my side every day. I just want to take a break from the internet, from all of this. I mean, I got my answers, but I'm still going to keep fighting for other people. But I just love to take some time away.
I got to ask this. It's a very personal question. You're a truck driver, 18 years.
Yeah.
What you're driving? How many hours a day?
Between 8 and 12 every day.
And what do you do when you're in the truck? I mean, are you listening to audiobooks? Do you listen to music? How do you control your thoughts, or how do you not get into a very bad circle of circular bad? I mean, negative thoughts. How do you control your thoughts while you're driving? All day.
It's really hard. I try with music, but now there's so many songs I can't listen to. When they come on the radio, I shut them off right away. Like Big League, like Tom Cochrane, my boy's going to play in the Big League. That song tears me up. I can't do it. There's so many songs that me and Sean listen to together that I have to shut it off. There's so many trigger spots being a truck driver. I've gone by so many spots that we've been together, and it kills me. I start crying. I got to pull over to the side. And sometimes I just turn the radio right down. It's dead silence. And I try not to think about it, but then it creeps in my head. It's always there, even when I try not to think about it. I try to do things to not think about it, but it's just always there. My boy is dead. It's like a whisper in, your boy is dead. Your boy is dead. I can't escape it. I wish I could just stay home and do nothing. I've served people for 18 years as a trucker. I think I deserve to retire right now. I can't even grieve, Sean. With all the fighting I'm doing on my Twitter and driving a truck during the day, I haven't had time to grieve, actually. It's horrible.
Now, and there's a Give, Send, Go. I'm going to put this in the link, and it's in the description, and people can share it. But at this point, there can be no justice. There can be no retribution. There can only be, I don't know, some semblance of this should never happen again, but it should never have happened in the first place. So, I mean, snip, clip, and sharing the story and shaming. I mean, I could not shame the politicians enough without regressing into swearing. Jagmeet Singh, the man of the people, Justin Trudeau, all about tolerance and love and all this bullshit, and snubbing his nose in the misery that is the inevitable result of having done what they did, which was use their media to whip up a country into an absolute frenzy, come out with some shitty developed, shitty produced, untested, not tested in the traditional ways, just having whipped everybody up into the idea that this is what they need to get their lives back, even if it takes their lives, safe and effective. And if anything happens, you're an anti-vaxxer, misogynist, racist, bigot, anti-science, and you deserve to be shunned after having suffered injury or loss. There cannot be a shaming public enough and humiliating enough for what they deserve for this. And the media, CBC, Global News, CTV, not covering it. You have your expert report, and now they're going to go after the expert and say Dr. Cole is a quack. His methodology is. But hey, and by the way, maybe one day it comes out that the methodology finds out that whatever dye they're putting in was bonding to something and not spike or whatever. That's possible. You can only operate with the best science of the day. This is the best science of the day. And what's clear is that they were not operating with the best science of the day when they rushed this crap through, and admitted as much when Anthony Housefather provided that eloquent, highly detailed explanation of how they whipped everyone up into a frenzy and said, this is your solution, even though it's so crazy risky that companies will not sell it without full immunity.
Yeah. That's funny. If you get a bad burger from McDonald's, they'll make it right.
No, you get lettuce that has E. coli on it. They're going to eight heads. They're going to recall 1 million heads of lettuce.
Yeah. People dying. It's just like they don't care. Sean did what was asked of him. He did what the government asked. He saw people around him taking it, I guess, and they weren't dying. So he thought, okay, it's okay. If it's the only way I can get back to hockey, I guess I have to. If he was told before that needle, oh, by the way, son, you could die, he wouldn't have took it. My boy has been murdered as far as I'm concerned.
Sighthounds in local says, I understand Dan wants to help others, but he needs to take care and heal. Take a break from social media isn't a bad idea. And Mandalici says, he says, you need public outcry on Twitter. Support him and push back in the public arena with a public outcry. Barnes says this works. Have you garnered a retweet from any the Elons of Twitter? I actually happen to think your account is being suppressed because it doesn't even come up as a recommended name, despite that I follow you when I try to tag you.
Yeah, I'm totally being suppressed all the time. There's certain things I tweet and it'll get nothing. And that's so unusual for my account. Every time I post something, I get hundreds and hundreds of likes and comments, and then some get nothing. And I've had so many people tell me, Dan, I don't see your tweets anymore.
No, I know it is because I can't even tag you on purpose. Like it's and I have done very, very informal testing. It's like when you use certain names or certain words, it's obvious the tweet is not getting any. It's obvious it's being suppressed. It's just, and now I'm reading some of the comments here. This is B. Craig says that is correct. They murdered his boy.
They did. Just wanted to play hockey. and they took him from me. It's hard not to snap every day, Viva. I'll tell you. I got to keep it under control. People say I would do so many things. I would do this. I would do that. Well, I can't. Can't fight for Sean if I'm in jail. I
It
gotta
is,
stay calm.
and people say that. People say that, and I know some of them mean it in a supportive way, like, oh, I would do that if it, you can't. First of all,
No.
it's not even as though it's not as though Sean would want you to do that in any event.
Exactly.
But the no, I you need to take care of yourself at some point. You've got the answer, which most people knew, which you knew in your heart of hearts.
Yeah.
And the question is, at some, you're going to do what you do with it, but the people are right. You have to, at some point, take care of yourself and rest and heal and grieve. And it's all right. Now people know where to find you. Answers for Sean. We're gonna end this and we're gonna talk offline. Let me just make sure that I didn't forget anything and make sure that see if anybody has any questions that I didn't get to. Let's see here. Just make sure. Fear of contagion is a weapon of the government, is never going away. It worked very well. And then Devil Dogmom says, Viva, Elon listens to you. Bring up the suppression. I brought it up with back before this, not that it's comparable at all, but jokingly brought it up with Gad Sad, because it's clear that Gad Sad, after he had a fight with Elon, it was clear overnight his account was not getting, some with hundreds of thousands. I think we all it needs to be, this needs to be blasted. And the smallest of victories would be if Joe Warmington does a story on this. The amazing thing is, we've seen in real time how the Canadian media will not cover stories, despite them being of national or international interest, because of the politics. Even, was it Joe Warmington who had a very, very soft fluff piece on the Joel Harden fake hate crime? I think it was that story. I don't want to make a mistake. Rest of legacy media would not cover that story of a Canadian MPP lying about a hate crime. They just won't do it. They're sure as hell not going to cover this, because it exposes. Do you know how many vaccine injuries have been approved under the VISP?
The last I heard, it was 3, I think. Like, that's not a lot. It's you have to prove it to them. Well, why should the people who got hurt have to prove it? They should have to prove it didn't happen, and they can't.
It's even, they should, there is such a temporal proximity to this. It's not something where you can then say 4 days, and it's obviously a deliberate, intellectual, dishonest argument. They're going to say, well, too far away, not proximate enough, too close, it couldn't have been that. And especially, and I'm not sure that this is still the case, but I'm fairly certain it is that they would actually chalk this up to an unvaccinated death, because he hadn't received both doses and it hadn't been 2 weeks since the last dose. But then 6 months later, well, that's too far out. The Martins, I don't know if they found out ultimately that, I think they did find out that their daughter had got a second shot, or they don't know that definitively yet. But
because the doctor won't release the records to them for their own daughter. He will not give them to them.
This is Trista Martin. I had her parents were on, and they were saying, well, she, it was 3.5 months after, which is still proximate enough for an unexpected sudden death of a young person. But then lo and behold, it might be that she went back to the doctor to get potentially the second shot, even closer to her death. Yeah. Have you guys, has the community that you're a part of, because I know I don't want to make a mistake on his name. The young boy in the States, do you remember his name? Let me just go up here and see. I know someone mentioned it earlier on. Chat, remind me of the name of he was a 16-year-old boy in the States.
Ernesto Ramirez.
Ernesto Ramirez, thank you. Now you're all a community. Have you thought about trying to organize some sort of speech? What do they call them? Public speaking events where you all come together and share your stories, or does that already happen?
I would love to do that, but with me being in Canada and him in America, it's going to be hard to make that happen. But we've both done interviews over and over again. We're doing the best we can.
I'm going to. Someone in the chat said call Alex Jones. I mean, I've been in touch with the Infowars people. I'm gonna, it's such a disgusting. I mean, I'm a very patient person, and I'm gonna get upset. I'm a very patient person, and for ultimately forgiving. The government is forcing the victims of their. I'm going to call it an atrocity right now. They're forcing the victims of their atrocity to rely on the kindness of strangers for life-saving treatment in the case of Sheila Annette Lewis. They're forcing them to rely on networks to share their stories because they want to hide it, conceal it, and not provide the services. Not just that they're there to provide, but that the victims have paid into the system to be provided to them. And it's enraging. It's enraging from the spectator perspective. So that's not a bad suggestion. I'm gonna DM this to everybody I know, and when just see if you can get it out there. But it's Dr. Drew. So he was on. That was from February 2023 on Dr. Drew, and it looked like I'm gonna go do a proper screen comparison and see if those slides were the same slides. Dan, we are gonna stay in touch. You're looking for an attorney in Ontario.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay.
Praying for it, actually.
All right, I have to see who I know. People have some immediate reflexes, but we've thought about those as well. Dan, I mean, I'll give you the last word, and then we're going to end this, and we'll talk offline for a bit. People can find you, Answers for Sean, on Twitter. Where else can they find you?
That's the only place. No one else will let me talk. YouTube takes everything down to do with Sean. Facebook takes everything down. So Twitter's been good to me. I'll say that. They let me talk about Sean.
Well, I'm going to post this on Twitter. I'm going to post this interview in any event tomorrow on YouTube and see what happens. Maybe later tonight.
They'll take it down.
We'll see about that. And then the question was also, I just shared your Give, Send, Go again. Your ultimate. Well, first of all, you didn't. Dr. Cole didn't charge you. A lawyer is probably not going to take any of this on contingency because Canada's not what the States is, and this is an uphill battle regardless. I do know that there was a lawsuit recently filed against the government and the CBC, from what I understand, for a vaccine injury. The question is, I'll see who that. Do you know who that attorney is?
Eva Chipiak.
Okay. All right, we'll see what we can do, Dan. Okay. Final word. I mean, final word. How are you finding support? Finding support. Have you been a religious person in your life? Are you finding some form of spiritual support there? Is it producing any tangible results in terms of your ability to go on?
Well, I do believe in God. I don't go to church, but I do believe, and I've prayed since Sean died more than I ever have in my life. I'm hoping God is helping me through this, because I know with my temper what I'm capable of, and I'm proud of myself for keeping it together. So maybe something is intervening in that. And I just appreciate you so much for helping me and letting me talk. I mean, it's people like you who give us a voice. So many won't.
I'm gonna also we're gonna keep talking offline so that you do not that you keep it together and that you don't succumb to whatever you don't. It's not that you don't have it in you. I think you have that appreciation for. They cannot victimize you to that level, and so it's.
I love Sean more than anything they can do to me.
All right, we're going to end this. We'll talk offline. So everybody, thank you. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Everyone enjoy the night. Dan, stick around.
Okay.
Night, everyone.